Coming to you from deep inside the bowels of a great big empty. Get ready for another episode of The Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
Hey folks, welcome to this week's episode of the Home Defense Show. I'm your host, Skip Coryell, and if you love your family, care about them deeply, and want to learn how to protect them in every facet of your life, then you've come to the right place. Today, we are broadcasting, or recording, I should say, from the beautiful downtown metropolis of Orangeville, Michigan. And you're thinking, is that in Florida? No. It's not in Florida, it's in Michigan. It's my hometown. I grew up, a little less than a mile from here. And this is my teeny tiny little town. I love small town America. I just love it. It's got a flavor all its own. It's slower. People know each other. There seems to be more accountability because if you're rude to someone, you're going to see him again tomorrow, kind of a deal. I just feel introspective today. I usually feel that way, but more so today. So I'm here. I'm in my Honda Pilot, and I'm drinking my Diet Coke here. Actually, it's half Diet Coke, half regular Coke, and I only drink half of it, so it's probably okay. It's like only a fourth of the calories of a regular Coke. But, let me give you a tour of the town. I can leave my car running here because I'm not going very far, because the town isn't that big, right? I mean, here we are, and I've got, I'm going to show you the whole town right here. Right there is the gas station. It's a brand new gas station. We're very proud of our Sunoco Express stop. We have a dollar store now, the Dollar General. And then right there is the infamous Orangeville Tavern. I know it doesn't look like much, but that has seen a lot of history. Price of gas, $2.59 today. And then over here, we've got the Orangeville Fire Department. Okay, and I don't know if you can read that sign, but it says, "To those who courageously gave their lives and those who bravely serve today, thank you." And then, of course, they've got, all the flags there, a U.S. flag on each side. I see a Marine Corps flag there, which, of course, I love. And then down there in the distance, see that big white building down there with a steeple? That's the church where I grew up. Orangeville Baptist Church. And then that building right there, kind of an off-white building. 100 years ago, that was the schoolhouse. Orangeville had their own school, and a lot of my relatives, I guess you'd call them ancestors now, went to this school right there. So that is the entire town. I'll give you a panoramic view. There's the trash guy. He's thinking green. Isn't that wonderful? But hey, that's my town. It reminds me of that, what was that song by Paul Simon, "In My Little Town"? I never knew nothing. I was just my father's son, something like that. But you've had the tour of Orangeville, Michigan. And nothing bad ever happens in your hometown, right? So we don't need to go armed. Well, I'm armed. I'm in Orangeville, and I'm armed, which I think is a good idea. I mean, just a few months ago, we had, a double murder here. Things happen in our little town. Things change. And there's no getting around it. Society changes around us. Therefore, our little town changes as well. I walked into the gas station to get my Diet Coke here, and I just picked up, the latest copy of our hometown newspaper. This one is, the Hastings Banner here. Look at that guy, Terry Jack Rose. Headline says, Hastings man faces 10 felonies after police standoff. You know, Hastings has what, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people in it? Not that big a town. It's small town America. But small town America has its drama, and it's been affected adversely just like big city, urban America has. Let me just read this to you. This gives you a flavor of the kind of thing that happens in all small towns across the country. A 6.5-hour standoff in Hastings led to an arrest and 10 felony charges against a 32-year-old Hastings man Wednesday morning. Police said Terry Jack Rose was armed with a gun when he barricaded himself inside a residence in the 700 block of North Hanover Street Tuesday night. He refused to come out until the Michigan State Police Emergency Support Team fired pepper spray canisters into the house. That's going to leave a mess. Hastings City Police Chief Jeff Pratt said officers received a call sometime after 10 p.m. Tuesday from a woman asking officers to go to the residence to check on her daughter. When officers arrived, the daughter was outside the house. She told police she had been assaulted and trapped inside the house by Rose. She said Rose had a gun and had made threatening and suicidal statements to her. And it goes on to say what happened. You know, basically he barricaded himself in the house all night long. I think he went to sleep, maybe. I don't know. And then he came out and he was arrested, and he's going to do some time in prison. And I think that's probably a good place for him right now. Let him sort out his problems. But you know, this kind of stuff, it happens all over our tiny little towns, all over America, you know, even in the country. That's the way that it is. And that's why you, your spouse, should be armed and trained. I've been doing tons of classes. It's like they're exploding right now, and I'm happy to see that, simply because we need it. I would prefer to go unarmed my whole life. I got my gun on me right now. It's a big honking, M&P 9mm full frame, but I'd rather not do it. But realistically, if I want to enhance my safety and my family's safety, I have to do it. So that's what I do. And I think you ought to do that as well. But, hey, what can you do, right? Super busy. Today I've got Frontlines of Freedom Radio. I got to go into Grand Rapids, the big city, and do that. And I'm also working on the Frontlines of Freedom book. Colonel Denny Gillum and I are facilitating a book written by veterans all across America. We've got admirals, generals, even a few token sergeants, who have written chapters for this book. It's called Frontlines of Freedom, Field Manual for Saving America. And we're going to talk about it on the show today on Frontlines of Freedom. If you haven't checked out Frontlines of Freedom, go to frontlinesoffreedom.com. Check that out. If you're a military vet, thank you for your service. It's just awesome. Today on the show, what are we doing? We're speaking with Mark Walters from Armed American Radio. Armed American Radio, that was launched, I think, way back in like 2009. I was one of his first guests on that show because I was organizing the Second Amendment March in Washington, D.C. at the time, and Mark and I got to be friends. We've been friends ever since. He's published a couple of books with me. It's been an awesome ride for Mark and I. But Mark and I, we're going to be talking for about 35 minutes today. What is happening in Virginia? This once bastion of gun rights, in the South, has turned liberal, anti-gun, just in one election. And what's going to happen there? No one really knows for sure. They're proposing a lot of anti-gun laws, sweeping anti-gun laws, comparable and sometimes, some instances even exceeding what California has. What's going to happen? 95% of the counties are declaring themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries. Is there going to be an armed revolution? You know, I'm not an alarmist, but if they pass all these laws, there's going to be some blowback, because I don't think Virginia is going to take this sitting down. But we'll see. Let's see what Mark Walters from Armed America Radio has to say about that. In the meantime, hey, check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical. Protect yourself from the criminal justice system should you ever have to use your gun for self-defense. And also, it is 32 degrees out right now, but you know, at Center Shot Indoor Gun Range, it is a perfect 70 degrees. So check out centershotgunrange.com and go there, get a membership so you can go there and shoot all winter long without freezing your hiney off. All right, when we come back, we're going to have Mark Walters from Armed American Radio. We're gonna check out, dissect this whole Virginia freedom threat. This is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome to the Home Defense Show with my dad, Skip Coryell. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if life was like the movies and the good guys always won? In today's world, if you're forced to use your firearm to protect yourself, you will need protection. Firearms Legal Protection is here for you. FLP provides you with seasoned, experienced attorneys that handle your criminal and civil matters as a result of you protecting yourself. FirearmsLegal.com provides its members with uncapped attorney's fees, bail bond protection, and coverage in all 50 states. We are not a reimbursement plan. You can access uncapped attorney's fees for as low as $10 a month. Firearms Legal members are provided with educational services, training videos, and access to our vast national attorney network. While you're protecting yourself, let Firearms Legal protect you.
Listen up, folks. This is important. There are plenty of legal protection services out there, but none will protect you as well as Firearms Legal Protection. This is the one I use and the only one I recommend. Visit firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical and protect your family now.
Hey folks, I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 19 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Coryell Civilian Combat, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book by yours truly, Skip Coryell. Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. There's your host, Skip Coryell. Today we are speaking with one of my best Second Amendment buddies in the entire universe, Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio. Mark, welcome to the Home Defense Show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Skip. We've known each other a long time, brother.
You know, funny how that happens, right? I mean, the older you get, the older your friends get. But I wouldn't have it any other way. You've been a great friend to the show, great friend to the Second Amendment March, to me personally, and it's just been a wild ride, and I expect it's just going to keep getting better and better.
Well, I think the Democrats are seeing to that, Skip.
Oh gosh, they're relentless, aren't they? They never give up.
No, they're not going to give up ever, and it behooves us to realize that and remember that this is a battle that these are devious, hateful, un-American, freedom-hating socialists that are trying to bring this country down. And this is a legitimate question, and I'll ask it of you now and of listeners right now. I want people to think about this. And I would have had an opportunity to mention this throughout the interview anyway. I can't get out of any interview without asking this question. But it's really, really important right now as we see these attempts to disarm Virginians. I'm sure we'll talk about that. Democrats' attempts at gun control, which running on pure confiscation. Hell yes, we're going to take away your AR-15, your AK-47. Applause. We see polls showing that half or more of Democrats support some form of gun confiscation. They own it. They own confiscation. And we're going to make them eat it through the next 100 election cycles because they've embraced it. Mm-hmm. Virtually all of their, well, not virtually, but every one of their candidates has embraced confiscation. So I have to ask this question, and it's legit. And it's sad. But what is it about their agenda that requires you to be disarmed?
Yeah.
And it's a frightening question, but it's a legitimate question. What are they trying to do? What do they want to do that requires you to be disarmed?
Mark, I think there's only one obvious answer to that. I mean, we've seen it happen throughout history for the last, 100 years. You know, tyrants who wanted to control their people and commit genocide have always disarmed them first. And that, for me, that's the scary part. Because is that their end game? Are they that crazy? Are they megalomaniacs? What exactly is going on in their psyche?
It's a power grab. It's about power. They can't have absolute power with an armed population that is able to resist. And we're seeing that in Virginia right now.
Yeah.
But I would challenge you on the last 100 years. I would say thousands of years. And these were tactics used by the Romans as they conquered the globe. Romans didn't have any opponents that were armed. They disarmed or slaughtered in the process anybody that opposed them. And of course, their regime grew and marched across a number of continents.
Yeah.
But yeah, they didn't have armed. There was no armed ability to resist. You were an elitist, and this is what happens in socialism. Mm-hmm. You have an elite class. Let's talk about Bloomberg for a second. He's a prime example of this. Here's a guy talking about disarming you while he's surrounded by his own private armed security. Why is that lost on Bloomberg? No. He knows he's armed. He has in his mind the right to be armed because he is a statist. He's an elitist. So it's okay for him to be armed because he's better than you. It's he can drive around in big SUVs, bulletproof SUVs. He can drive around, and he can because he can afford it. But it's become an entitlement to people like that. Hollywood's another prime example. These yahoos march around lecturing me about global warming. Some idiot like Leonardo DiCaprio flying around on some jet that's, private 737 on his way to a 150-foot yacht in the Mediterranean, lecturing me about my carbon footprint. Go pound salt, punk. Okay, who listens to these people, right?
Well,
it's a blowhard. But enough people do, and unfortunately they get media coverage. And that media coverage, this all ties together, Skip. You know this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We're speaking with Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio. One of my favorite syndicated radio shows in the country. So, and it should be yours as well, because, if you don't listen to someone like Mark Walters, Armed American Radio, then you're not going to know what's going on, and you will lose your rights. I mean, because a lot of it is about knowing what's going on. How can you fight an enemy that you don't know anything about? And Mark, that's one of the things I like about you. You always have your finger on the pulse of the country, and you know the behind-the-scenes information on what's going on. And can you share with us about Virginia now? It just seems like they're going nuts over there. What's going on in Virginia?
Let me first off, let me say something. It's funny. Sometimes I kind of do have my pulse on this stuff. I've been, Skip, let me go back for just a little bit. Armed American Radio on April 26, 2020 will celebrate its 11th anniversary. April 27th, we will begin our 12th year on national broadcasting, now in hundreds of cities. And I looked at that. I wrote it for the first time after the first year in an email that I was sending out to my premium subscribers at armedamericanradio.com. And as I wrote the email out, I looked at it and I said, since our inaugural show on April 26, 2009, and then I went, it's 2020. And I just said our inaugural show in 2009. And I looked at it and I thought, wow, the big difference between 2009 and 19, you see that 10 years there, but then you go to 2020, it sounds like an extra decade went by.
Yes, it does.
09 to 2020. It's crazy because of that 2 in there. But it dawned on me, a lot of time has passed. And, I'll tell you some funny stories. I'll get phone calls from an individual. I'll just tell you that I'll get a 11:45 in the morning, 11:45 in the evening, close to midnight. My phone has rang many, many, many times with information from individuals who are contacting me about something. I'll hang the phone up and I'll say, I shouldn't know that. I don't need to know all that stuff. Man, I really don't. I can't talk about some of it,
Yeah.
And I think, wow, there's so much information out there now that it's frightening, is what I'm getting at. And when all you do all day is focus on that information and you see what's out there, and over the years I've accumulated so many wonderful contacts of people who you hear on the radio show with me that are just outrageous. Alan Gottlieb, my gosh, the single most powerful man alive in the United States today, in the world today, fighting for our right to keep and bear arms is Mr. Gottlieb. There's no question about it. And it's fun to get a phone call from Alan, and he says, "Hi, how are you?" Good. I don't have a lot of time. I'm going back to the White House for lunch. I mean, you think to yourself, okay, all right, that's pretty cool, to hear that, right? So that's how you know that, how important this topic is.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's frustrating for me, kind of open it up a little bit here too, because I know you well enough. It's frustrating for me because I can't get to all of it.
Yeah.
And in 3-hour Monstercast on Sundays, I do is a guest lineup, guest-driven radio, as you know. Then the daytime show is more me. I get to cover more current events from my own mind, and every once in a while I'll bring a guest in. But I can maneuver through the current events quicker during the day by keeping it guest-free and keep people informed. And I could open up every broadcast with, "Let me apologize in advance." I can't get to everything anymore.
Yeah.
There's so much coming at us, to circle back to your, how you originally formed the question, that it is impossible to keep up with. It just is. And then we go right back to Virginia. Boy, oh boy, what a powder keg, what a mess this is. It's very dangerous in Virginia right now. And it's indicative. That's why every American, I made this the most important story of 2019, was Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And on my last broadcast of 2019 on the Monstercast on Sunday, I asked each of my guests, including Alan Gottlieb and John Lott and A.W.R. Hawkins from Breitbart News and others, what did they feel was the most important story? Each one of them gave a different answer, and we got great insight. Each one of them I could have agreed with.
Yeah.
Because, that was huge. One of them was the implosion of the National Rifle Association, is what Rob Pinkett said. Mm-hmm. What a huge story that is. Who would have ever thought we'd see that, right?
Oh, yeah.
But when looking at all of these things, I can't get past what's happening in Virginia for a lot of different reasons. I have family there. I graduated college there. As a young man, I water skied the James River. We kept our boat at the Virginia Powerboat Association in Midlothian on the James River. I lived in Virginia Beach. Both my niece and my nephew, both of my sisters were married in Virginia. And I have long history in Virginia. One of my sisters still lives there. All of my nieces and nephews on my mom, my side of the family here, were born in Virginia. I have a lot of history. Both of my sisters graduated college in Virginia as well as I did. So we're all Virginians now.
Yeah.
And when I see what's happening back in the state of Virginia to my friends and fellow Virginians, it's very discouraging. It's upsetting. But at the same time, I'm not shocked by it. We just didn't know where this was going to erupt, but this has to happen. One side has to prevail here, Skip.
Yeah.
This can't continue.
Yeah, you're right. Mark, before we go into the break, can you give our listeners a summary of what has happened in Virginia? And then when we go into the next segment, we'll talk about, maybe what's the prognosis.
Yeah, not enough people voted in Virginia. 40% of the electorate turned out for the elections. Enough seats flipped because of 4 or 5 counties in the state of Virginia with 40% turnout that flipped the legislature from Republican to Democrat for the first time in a quarter century. You have a blackface, racist, hood-wearing or blackface, take your pick, he's one of either of them, Governor Ralph Northam, and the incoming Democrat legislature have made it their point to make coming after your firearms their first priority when they take over the legislature, which they did yesterday for the first time in a quarter of a century. And I say yesterday the 9th when they convened. And now you have virtually 95% of the counties have stood up to that and declared themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries in opposition to the governor. And the situation there now is a powder keg. We can talk about it when we come back in more detail.
Yeah, that's just awesome. It's terrifying as well. I mean, we haven't seen stuff like this.
Well, it is.
In a long time.
I'll give you some insight into what terrifying. We'll talk, when we have some time, we'll talk about individual instances of what's actually occurring in the state. And I can give you some personal experience from people I know who are on the ground and tell you that I wish I could tell you everything. I knew I can't because of some of the people I'm talking about
Sure.
have very high up contacts. But nonetheless, I can give you the synopsis of where we are in Virginia. And it's a very scary situation. And every American needs to remember, every pro-gun, pro-rights American patriot needs to know that we're all Virginians right now, because this is the model, what we're seeing happen in Virginia, for what they want to do for us across the board federally. And I'll tie those two together when we have a chance.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, folks, we're speaking with Mark Walters, host of Armed American Syndicated Radio. We're going to take a 2-minute break. When we come back, we're going to speak more with Mark about what's likely to happen or what might happen and what maybe you can do as an individual to help out. Because like Mark said, right now we are all Virginians, we're gun owners, we're American patriots, and we can't just roll over here. Go ahead and check out armedamericanradio.com in the break. And, of course, listen to our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical, and also Center Shot Indoor Gun Range, where it's always a perfect 70 degrees. This is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
This is Felix Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Always use guns safely and wisely. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Would you like to take your tactical and marksmanship training to the next level? If the answer is yes, you need to check out Center Shot Indoor Gun Range just south of Grand Rapids, conveniently located off US 131. Center Shot is one of the most advanced firing ranges in Michigan. Center Shot firing lanes have nearly 100 customizable shooting programs to make you better no matter what your skill level. Our advanced lanes allow a more immersive training experience to enhance your senses. Controlled lighting and target movement mean that you get the best practice and most fun out of Center Shot Indoor Gun Range. Memberships are available for as low as $150. Center Shot also offers a 10% discount to U.S. military veterans. So, no matter what the weather, hot, cold, or in between, Center Shot Indoor Gun Range is always a perfect 70 degrees. This is where I train every week, and so should you. Find out more by going to CenterShotGunRange.com or call them at 616-371-7468. Stay safe, and I'll see you at Center Shot Indoor Gun Range. Hey folks, I want to tell you about my new book, Concealed Carry for Christians. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and your family, and that includes people of faith. Our churches are not as safe as they used to be, and that's why I included chapters on forming church safety teams and stopping mass shooters. You can get Concealed Carry for Christians real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Coryell, Concealed Carry for Christians, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Concealed Carry for Christians by yours truly, Skip Coryell.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. Today, we are honored, pleased, and privileged to be speaking with the host of Armed American Radio, Mark Walters. Mark, we've been talking about Virginia. You know, if this can happen in Virginia, can it happen anywhere?
Of course. You know, it's ironic. Let's talk Virginia in detail. First of all, it was Virginia on December 15th, 1791, that ratified the Bill of Rights, making December 15th Bill of Rights Day. It was Virginia, and why that's significant, because you needed 2/3 majority to ratify the Bill of Rights. It was Virginia that became and tipped and ratified. It was Virginia that gave us the ratification of the Bill of Rights. It is now Virginia, that's a powder keg, where the governor is coming after your Bill of Rights, particularly number 2. Which is what they're making a war on. So that's not lost on me, the irony there.
Yeah.
It's also not lost on me. A lot of people attribute the first shot of the Civil War being Fort Sumter. I would submit to you that the first shot fired in the Civil War on the ground, because Sumter was a cannon fodder back and forth at the fort from the ground. But Bull Run, Manassas, which is where the first ground battle was fought in Northern Virginia. And let's not forget that just a couple years ago, I took my family up to see some friends of mine in Virginia Beach, and stopped at Appomattox on the way to show my kids where the Civil War ended in Virginia. Not to mention Charlottesville, Thomas Jefferson, Madison. These are all Virginians.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have, this irony is not lost on me, and all of us need to understand that this history, because what we're seeing in Virginia now is history in the making. Mm-hmm. What do I mean by that? Oh, you're just, you're embellishing. No, I'm not. Here's where we're at in the state of Virginia. You have a governor who hates your right to bear arms. And by the way, the governor is not liked in Virginia by the vast majority of the population. Remember, how did that happen in Virginia? How did it happen? We have an electoral college at the federal level. And when you look at what's going on in Virginia, it's exactly why we have an electoral college at the federal level. We ought to have one at the state level as well. See California, see New Jersey, and see Virginia. Because you have 4 or 5 counties in Virginia that are now making law for the rest of the state. But when you look at the Second Amendment sanctuary map, you see the entire state of Virginia is red, with the exception of those 5 counties. The latest being Virginia Beach 2 nights ago, that just voted to become a Second Amendment sanctuary, the most populated county in the state, by the way. Rappahannock County on the eastern shore of Virginia, Chesapeake. Governor Blackface, hood-wearing Northam's home county just declared themselves a Second Amendment sanctuary. So what is a Second Amendment sanctuary? A Second Amendment sanctuary in layman's terms is, nope, don't think so, not today, not up in here. We're not going to enforce what you pass. 95% of the counties and municipalities in the state of Virginia have told the governor, words I can't use on this show, you. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what's happened. You have sheriffs in those counties who have agreed to deputize thousands of their citizens in the event the state tries to force compliance. So what you've got is, you've got millions of Virginians who said, wait a minute here. No, we're not going to accept your unconstitutional gun grab. We're not going to give you our property. And Virginians have made it very clear, we will not comply with your unconstitutional edicts. It's not going to happen, period. Meanwhile, the governor, in an attempt to pay back Bloomberg, who fused about $2.5 million into the election, into a few seats that they needed to flip, in blue areas that they knew was reliable, that gave them control for the first time in 25 years, is now paying back Bloomberg with about 8 gun control bills. The most egregious of them are an assault weapons ban, which the governor has supported, banning assault weapons. He seemed to back down a little bit in the face of the sanctuary movement that was just exploding around him. And he says, okay, we'll grandfather your guns in as long as you register them. And the citizens said, yeah, not up in here, not today, not going to happen. We're protecting our rights for future generations just as we are our own. Not going to happen, Governor. And the sanctuary movement continued to grow. So you have, in a nutshell, an incredible, remarkable grassroots uprising in the state of Virginia, unlike anything we've seen in modern history at this level. And let me be fair. Illinois started this back in 2017, a couple years ago, when 67 counties in Illinois said to Springfield and Chicago, yeah, no, not up in here, not today. Mm-hmm. But it didn't get the coverage that it was getting, that Virginia's getting right now, because the politics were slightly different. The governor's being extremely vocal. We've got a party that just in the last 2 years has shifted even farther left than it was in 2017. And Virginia is getting all the coverage right now, as it should. So you have a standoff where the governor is standing by, supposedly, and the Socialist Attorney General Mark Herring has said that they would, in fact, enforce these to whatever degree. Now you've got bills, we've got budget measures passing in Virginia, proposed to increase funding so that they can incarcerate people who violate the laws that they're getting ready to pass. Remember, you're talking about hundreds of years of Virginians now being decided by these incoming socialists that they're going to be felons if they keep the property that they've had their entire lives. Lawfully.
Yeah.
And they're saying that this is settled law, et cetera, but it's not.
Yeah. This is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. We're speaking with Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, all about, well, the potential catastrophe in Virginia. Now, Mark, the thing that crosses my mind here, I mean, you got 95% of the counties, the county sheriffs, the county governments that have said, hey, we're not going to let the state dictate to us what we do and don't do with our guns. Isn't there the powder keg there is, the governor, he's got control of the state police. He's got control of the National Guard. What's going to happen when they go and try and start arresting people if the county sheriffs and his deputies and, dare I use the word, militia get involved? It seems like there's real potential.
You can use the word militia. Militias are forming lawfully under Virginia constitutional law. They're allowed to, and they're forming as we speak right now. Several counties are forming legally in the state of Virginia as we speak under Virginia constitutional law. It's happening right now as we speak. This is all going on. Now, Representative Donald McKetchin, a Democrat, U.S. representative from the state of Virginia, 4th District, made the comment, a Democrat, of course, socialist, formerly known as Democrat, made the comment that the governor should call the National Guard or could call the National Guard in to enforce their new gun control measures. Mm-hmm. At which point, the National Guard commander in Virginia, because of the hoopla that created, stepped up and made a statement on Facebook, on social media. But in that, he didn't deny that they wouldn't enforce it if called. He just said nobody's been called. So in the State of the State address 2 days ago by Governor Blackface Hood-wearing Northam, he addressed gun control controversy, if you will, is what he said, towards the end of his speech. I guess he was trying to save the best for last. And he said, nobody is calling in the National Guard. Nobody is going door to door to confiscate your guns, all of which is a lie. Because what he did, now, not as far as calling it, let me back off of that statement. Let me back off of that for a second. Let me redirect myself there. He said that the National Guard wouldn't be called in. He never suggested the National Guard would be called in. Donald McKetchin did. We got you in fairness to the governor. Mm-hmm. And he said in the State of the State address, you got to take him at his word. It's all you got. Is he says nobody's going to call in the National Guard. Okay. However, state police, nobody's going to go door to door confiscating your firearms. Well, we've seen it in America. I say it's a lie. I'm not speaking specifically about him. We've seen that happen in America before is what I meant. We've seen it during Katrina, for example. We saw door-to-door. I mean, that's an unbelievable display of a violation of constitutional rights during the bombing search for the bomber in Boston, going door-to-door, kicking people out of their homes because they didn't believe when they said at the door, we're not harboring the guy. Get out of your house. We're going to come through it and look. See, that wouldn't have happened in Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay. But they let him get away with it. But we've seen instances of this before. And as gun owners, when we hear Beto O'Rourke and we hear Cory Booker and we hear Swalwell and Kamala Harris and the rest of the Democrats still in the field agree with them that, hell, yes, we're going to take your stuff away. Of course our feathers go up.
Yeah.
As they should. So the powder keg in Virginia becomes who blinks first. Because I can tell you now from private conversations I had yesterday with an individual who I wish I could name, but I can't. I have to ask for your trust here. I was told that during the lobby meetings, the individuals who are being talked to, the state representatives, are being told by officials, we will not comply. We're telling you that now. Pass what you want. We're not going to comply with it. And we will actively resist if confronted with forceful enforcement by the state. We will actively resist. What does actively resist mean? Therein lies the question.
Yeah.
The only way we're going to see that is if the Democrats try. Now, we've got precedent here, too. Let me take you to Connecticut. Shortly after Newtown, the anti-gun zealots in the state of Connecticut passed a assault weapons registration scheme. There's been virtually no compliance to it at all. virtually no compliance. I think under 15,000 of what they knew to be or thought to be, well over 500,000 to 750,000 quote unquote assault weapons, to use their term for the purpose of the discussion, that they know are out there in the wild. Virtually no compliance in Connecticut at all. And I was one vocally saying, go, Governor. Go force your compliance and see what happens. They won't. They can't do that. What are they going to do? Put 500,000 Connecticut taxpaying residents who violate no laws in prison? There's rumors coming out of Virginia now that the budget is being increased to be able to do just that. Yeah. How much truth is there to that? That remains to be seen. The point that I'm making to you is that the Virginia citizens have stood up and said, now, the 5 counties that gave us you are not going to dictate what happens to the other 95 counties in this state. And they've made that extremely clear. Now, you know the governor. I don't care what he says publicly. You know he's quaking in his boots. You know the Attorney General, Mark Herring, the socialist that he is quaking in his boots. Ruh-roh.
Yeah.
What are we going to do now? That's all we've been talking about is gun control, gun control, gun control. And, I mean, we've got the whole state up in our face in here. And they are. It's not individual people. It's it's local governments that are in their face.
Yeah. Well.
So a very, very tense situation that will rely on what happens is going to be determined by what happens during the legislative process. Can all this be stopped? Yeah, if they flip 2 Dems, look, you got Democrats in these areas. You don't think there's any Democrat representatives in 95% of the counties in the state? Of course there are. That want to get reelected, that are also gun owners, that are going to want to get reelected. Who, you know, if we can flip 2 Democrats in the state of Virginia, there's no legislation to begin with, and that's where this is being worked on right now, and hopefully that happens.
And, of course, you've got well, if they can last, if they can hold this off until the next election, I would think that the Democrats wouldn't be as successful in the next election after they've tipped their hand so egregiously, right, in the wake of this one. So there's hope.
Well, they know that. They know that. And obviously they're going to want to try to cram through anything they can right now. It's what Democrats do.
Yeah.
They don't care about the will of the people. Northam doesn't care about the will of the people. He cares about paying back Bloomberg. And the rest of them care about getting reelected, and we're hopeful that there's enough of them there that flip. And that the ideal outcome here would be that enough Democrats in the state of Virginia who come from some of these areas that have declared themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries listen to the people and actually do their jobs and represent the people that they were elected to represent, rather than the party and the ideologues and the Michael Bloombergs and the donors. And if they do that, then we're okay, at least for now. But there are 3 other legislative sessions coming up during the time till we have a next statewide election in the state of Virginia. So it's going to rear its ugly head. I'll quote Alan Gottlieb. Freedom will probably prevail in Virginia. Hopefully it does, my gosh. But the state's going to have to go through the meat grinder first.
Yeah.
And we're in the middle of they're just cranking the meat grinder up right now. But if there's trouble in Virginia because the Democrats decide that they're going to ignore the will of the people in these counties, symbolic or not, what the Second Amendment sanctuary cities are, and they decided to try to enforce this against 1 or 2 of these counties, that's when we're going to run into a problem where there's going to be a standoff that'll make the Bundy Ranch look like child's play.
Yeah. Wow. There's potential here all over the place.
There's real potential.
Gee,
there is.
Because you know that the Second Amendment community, they've been talking about the possibility of armed revolt for 12 years now, and it's never materialized. But it just seems like we've been gradually, little by little, heading in this direction. And, I see 2 things here, Mark, 2 things to be concerned about. One is, I'm in Michigan, and we have the same situation here, a similar situation, where we have one tiny little part of the state that controls the rest of the state, and that would be Detroit, the east side.
Right.
Almost every state now is getting to that point where the urban, there's such a population center that's anti-gun that they're controlling more and more state legislatures and governors and attorney general's offices and all of this. So to think that, I'm in Kansas, I'm okay, or I'm in Utah, I'm safe, in the long run, I don't think
not
you
anymore.
are. It's different.
No, not anymore. let me bring you right here to Virginia. And I know Michigan well. I lived in Virginia or Michigan until I was about 15. I lived in Ann Arbor. And you're right. You've got Detroit, pockets of Ypsilanti, pockets of Flint, pockets of, Ann Arbor is very liberal, that are really controlling that state now. And you're absolutely correct about that. Let me bring you to Georgia quickly. This is why the Second Amendment sanctuary movement is so important and why I spend so much time on this right now. And we are beginning to see some movement in this direction. Virginia should be the example right now, today, for Michigan, for Georgia, for Florida, for Arizona. States that are widely regarded as very pro-gun need to look at what's going on in Virginia, particularly a state like Arizona, whose demographics are shifting because all the socialists who created the socialist garbage that we now know as California don't want to live in the own cesspool that they created, are now moving to Arizona to take a shower and cleanse themselves off, but they bring the same politics with them. It's remarkable. So you've got a state in Arizona that's seeing that shift that could, in the very near future, turn blue.
Yeah.
So what Arizona needs to do right now, today, is start this Second Amendment sanctuary movement in advance of anything, to be proactive. What I've said about Virginia is Virginians now are being proactive reactively. They're proactively reacting to the upcoming legislative session, which just started a couple days ago.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't have been in that position to begin with. If look, I have to say this. If every single one of the people who showed up at these town hall meetings had voted, we probably wouldn't be in the situation to begin with, okay?
Yeah, you're right.
Undoubtedly, there are gun owners in Virginia, probably throughout the more rural parts of the state, that sit there and think, man, this Virginia, ain't nobody going to bother my guns, until they decide they want to bother your guns because you didn't get off your duff and go to the polls. So what I'm trying to say is states like Georgia, and I've already been discussing with GeorgiaCarry.org, getting the Second Amendment sanctuary moving in the state of Georgia right now. We have Stacey Abrams, who claims she should be the governor even though she lost by 58,000 votes, and every single recount, including her own side, can't muster up enough fake votes to trigger another recount. She still hasn't conceded. Okay? But they're trying to turn this state blue. This is a very red state. What happened in Virginia happened seemingly overnight. Although it wasn't, it was still very quickly. In the scheme of things. We're just talking about how fast time flies. No one 15 years ago or 12 years ago when this show first went on would have thought Virginia would be in the situation it's in. And we all know how fast those 12 years went by. So this is what now, we need to look at this as a model across the country, and it's happening. In Arizona now, you have counties that are now beginning to declare themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries. Tennessee, Kentucky. We're already there in Illinois. We've got one or two in New Jersey right now, one or two in Florida. There are rumblings here in the state of Georgia that there are 2 or 3 counties that I know who they are. I don't want to name them yet because I'm not sure yet. But there are 2 or 3 counties looking for it. In fact, they're seeking some of the proclamations from the other counties in Virginia right now that they can model their own after. But this has to happen now in advance of, because what we're seeing happen in Virginia is the model for what the socialists want to do. And in the previous segment, I said, as we get to that, we can talk a little bit more about that. The strategy they're using now is to run silent, run deep. The Joy Behar model. Shut up. Don't tell them you're going to take them. Just get elected and then take them.
Yeah.
Well, the reason they're doing that is because they saw what happened when they were outright telling everybody what they wanted to do, all giddy. Yes, we want to take your guns. Those individuals couldn't poll above 2%. And they're all out of the race now. The rest of them decided, hey, I'm not going to say that yet because I'm a smarter politician than Beto O'Rourke. I'm just going to be quiet. What did we see for the first 4 years of Obama? You and I knew this. Run silent, run deep. He shut his trap. No gun control for 4 years. He got reelected. And what did he say to Putin? Wait till after my reelection, I'll have more flexibility. Second term, he went all out after guns.
Yeah.
It's planted the seed for where we are today. So we know what they want to do. They've told us. Shame on us if we forget it, and shame on us if we don't take action. And Virginia has provided us the model for states now to protect themselves in the event that their state, imagine you get a blue governor in the state of Georgia. 4 years ago, you said to her, not up in here, lady. Not today. Because the Atlanta metro area will eventually, at one point in time, as it continues to grow and begin to eke out into some of the suburbs that are now predominantly red, you never know what can happen. The country is polarized. So we need to take this. We need to do this now. We need to do it proactively.
Yeah. This is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. We're speaking with Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio. Mark, we're about out of time, but before we wrap this up, can we basically, if we're taking action items here for every American, every, patriotic American, is it basically to use that Virginia model? And if your state, no matter how red it appears to be, you still need to go ahead. Yeah, get off your butt. And if you don't have a sanctuary, Second Amendment sanctuary model started, go ahead and get it started right now, preemptively, so that you don't look like you're a soft target.
Yeah, well, Bloomberg is going after those soft targets. He's already eyeballed Arizona, Nevada, and Florida. He's got Georgia in his sights now. If he can pick some of these states off, okay, that's what he's doing on the outside of his presidential run. He's spending hundreds of millions of dollars over there with Everytown for gun safety and the rest of it. Mm-hmm. So don't forget that. Let me give you the advice that this is what Alan Gottlieb, a dear friend and mentor of mine, said on my show 2 weeks ago when he was on. Before I go, I want to ask your listeners to do me a personal favor. Give me 1 hour a day of your time. Give 1 hour a day of your time to fighting for Second Amendment rights. Whether that's writing a letter to the editor in response to an anti-gun editorial you saw, or picking the phone up and calling a television station to ask the general manager to rebut the anti-gun lies that you just saw on one of their TV shows, whether it's helping raise money for the Second Amendment Foundation or whatever group you want, whether it's joining a grassroots organization, whether it's sending a snail mail letter to somebody, whether it's spending 20 minutes a day calling your state representatives every single day, spend 1 hour a day. If we multiply that across the country, that's how we win. Because you see the other side, we're seeing it in Virginia. They claim to have these big, massive groups. Unfortunately, they're nothing but, fortunately, they're cyber people. They're Facebook likes. They're Instagram likes. They couldn't do what we're seeing happen in Virginia. Only real grassroots movements can do that. That's us, the people. Forget Bloomberg's money. Bloomberg's money is not going to be able to buy their way out of what this grassroots movement in Virginia today. I don't care how much he spends. Yeah. The more he spends, the more the people are going to get angry and rise up. Donate a little bit of your time each and every day to the Second Amendment cause, and you'll be amazed at what we're able to accomplish.
Yeah. Mark, I agree with you. So many times on the left, they have these billions of dollars, and they use these billions of dollars along with their control of the mass media, and they try to make us feel like we're isolated, that we're alone, that we're the minority, that we're weak, when in reality,
we're not.
We're not. We're strong. We're the majority. We're in charge, but we have to not give up. We have to stand up and fight back. And hey, Mark, it's going to be a long haul. It's always a marathon. It'll never end. But again, we appreciate your insight, your wisdom, and your experience, and all your information. Mark, before we go, please tell people how they can get in contact with you and learn about all the good things that you do with Armed American Radio.
ArmedAmericanRadio.com. That's the single place to be. You can follow me on Twitter at AARMark. But no doubt you can get all the shows. You can listen to the Daily Show and the Weekend Show live right off the site. It opens up just like an app does on your phone on a mobile device. To listen to both programs, the AAR player pops up, ArmedAmericanRadio.com. Join us at the premium side, too. Get some great satellite radio moment word content that the FCC wouldn't approve of on the website.
Awesome. All right, Mark, thank you very much for being on the Home Defense Show today.
I love it. Thanks, Skip, for having me on.
Okay, all right, folks. We got a 2-minute break coming up. Check out our sponsors. Also, check out ArmedAmericanRadio.com. And then we'll come back, and I'll give you the wrap-up. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome to my dad's Home Defense Radio show. You're gonna love it.
This is Colonel Danny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated military talk radio show. One of my co-hosts is Skip Coryell, the host of this show. We cover things that impact military and veteran communities, and we do it from the veteran's perspective. The show is broadcast across the nation and is also available as a podcast on our website, frontlinesoffreedom.com. Please join Skip and me weekly on Frontlines of Freedom.
Okay, this is Skip Corley on the Home Defense Show. Welcome back. How was Mark Walters? Guy's incredible, isn't he? He just knows so much about the Second Amendment community, about all the laws, about the politics, all of that stuff. Guy's incredible, okay? So I'm proud to have him as my friend. I'm glad we could get him on the show. It took a couple of weeks because he's been in such demand lately. But, you know, thank God for guys like Mark Walters from Armed American Radio. As you can see, the situation in Virginia is approaching dire. The takeaway here is this kind of thing isn't happening just in Virginia. This could happen everywhere. We're in Michigan. Here in Michigan, you think this couldn't happen? You think our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, wouldn't sign a lot of these laws if they reached her desk? The only thing saving us right now is a legislature that supports our gun rights, but it's a small minority, okay? It used to be bigger. Now it's not. Used to be we had pro-gun Democrats in Michigan. Now we don't. I think maybe we have one, and that is it. But hey, I tell you, we're like one election away from losing our gun rights. But that's always been the case. Over in Detroit, half the electorate lives in Detroit. Most of Detroit is anti-gun. Even though they have more crime than us, they're still anti-gun. And you're thinking, well, hey, we don't have to worry here in Michigan, you know, because we've got that, you know, a slim majority in the legislature that is pro Second Amendment. And that's just not true. Virginia was saying that 2 or 3 years ago. And so they got lax, they relaxed, and look what happened to them, okay? So what I'm telling you, there is a movement growing in Michigan that would set up Second Amendment sanctuaries all over the state. It's largely symbolic, but it's a grassroots effort, and Michigan Open Carry, Michigan Gun Owners, and Michigan Coalition for Responsible Gun Owners are all on board cooperating. They've created a template that you can use to create your own sanctuary county here in the state of Michigan. I think we need to get on board with this. All of us cooperate. I'm going to be interviewing someone from one of those 3 groups. Okay, I'll reach out to them. If you're listening and you want to be interviewed, you're from one of those groups, and you want to give us the straight scoop on how we can get involved with this, let me know. Just skipcorriel@hotmail.com, or give me a phone call. All my info's on the internet, Facebook, whatever. But we need to do something now. We need to be proactive, nip this thing in the bud, show our legislators that, hey, we're awake, we're watching you. We're not like Virginia. We don't want to become like Virginia, okay? We don't want this to end in civil war. We don't have to let it happen, okay? We can get involved now, and that's what you need to do. All right, if you're a member of any of those 3 groups, go to their website, their Facebook pages, check it out, and lend your support. All right, next week, we're going to be talking more about this sanctuary, county deal, Second Amendment sanctuaries. We're going to set them up all over the state. Okay, in the meantime, February 22nd, I'll be speaking at the Berry County Church Safety Summit, and I'll be speaking on moral use of deadly force. I'll be juxtaposing moral use of deadly force, legal use of deadly force, and tactical use of deadly force. You got to have all 3. All right. In the meantime, check out Civilian Combat my book and Concealed Carry for Christians, all on Amazon.com. You got any questions, send them to me. Okay, I've been getting more email about the show with questions. I'll try and be more, dutiful about answering those on the air. Now, I got to head to Grand Rapids, and we're going to be dealing with Front Lines of Freedom, Military Talk Radio, and the book. All right, we're about done for this week, but we will go ahead and we'll be back next week talking about all kinds of good stuff. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. We will be back next week. Stay safe, carry safe, and carry often.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Home Defense Show. Now, get out there and protect the ones you love. We'll see you next week with more of the best in home defense.
Bye-bye, boys! Have fun storming the castle!